Hi, welcome back, everyone. Today, I want to talk a little bit about time management together with other career development tips. And the first one big tip, just sleep enough. And stop bragging about not having enough sleep. And in a study that shows with 2,500 participants, researchers find that society sometimes will see men who sleep less as being more successful, more masculine, and judge them more positively. And interestingly, this does not work for women. But regardless, it's important that you do sleep. If other people say they don't sleep, that you know that it could be they're putting up a front may not be true, and or they're really damaging their own body, which is not very good. Sleep does clean your brain. We are all intellectuals. We need our brain to function. Our brain is our muscles. Okay, and so success is really not a one-person journey. In a lot of the conventional wisdom is that you just study hard, right? Ask other people to invest in you. That's also very important. And I want to just give some examples about what, why, and how, right? SpaceX, the company owned by Elon Musk, who is obviously very successful, brilliant, trailblazer in the tech field. But a lot of us don't know that he received a huge amount of government subsidies in US. And this is an article in 2015 that reported that his companies receive almost $5 billion from government to develop space technology, satellite technologies, fuel cell technologies for cars, for electric cars. And this was a year ago that SpaceX received almost $1 billion in federal communication commission to connect rural areas with the internet. Right? So huge amount of investment. And so it's really, you have to understand that this is not just that one person. And obviously he was very successful earlier on. That's why the government trusted him. If you look at the movie industry, you look at the, what kind of superheroes on TV, and there's a lot of decisions making behind the scenes. Obviously money is involved, and the executives would have to think that making a female superhero movie, a Chinese American superhero movie would make money. Then they decided to invest in it. And that's why it takes 10 years for people to make a movie for Scarlett Johansson, who had been involved in the Marvel franchise for a decade. Okay? And same thing with Shang-Chi, right? If the executives don't perceive making an Asian superhero as profitable, as necessary, then they will not do it, regardless of how good Chinese superheroes are. Viola Davis said at the Emmy Award several years ago, she said that you cannot win any roles that are simply not there. And very much true. And I encourage all of you to hear her full speech, and very touching, very moving. And she, of course, won the award for her brilliant portrait of a Black law professor in How to Get Away with Murder. Just brilliant. And so you see, the career success is not, it's complicated. It's not just, passing all your exams. Do your work, stay up late. It's complicated. You need to have a support network. And one of the big tip that I often talk about to my students in my class and in my group is let your supervisors know your work and your abilities. A lot of times that I see students who assume their advisor, their supervisor, their bosses know what they did and how great it is and how significant their work is, but not necessarily. You have to verbalize it. You have to say it, and you have to really believe it in yourself. And that ties in back into the imposter syndrome that I talked about yesterday. If you underappreciate your own achievement, then you tend to talk less about your own work. And other people didn't know you have imposter syndrome. They will naturally think that you didn't work hard. Investing in yourself, as a part of you invest in yourself and ask other people to invest in you. In terms of investing in yourself, get higher degrees in our cohorts, and you're already in doing great because you're in a postgraduate program, getting master degrees, getting PhD degrees, learning relevant skills, build a supportive environments. And those are the things that you just have to do, constantly doing it. When you look for jobs, either academic or industry positions, really understand what the employers are looking for. To my surprise, a lot of people didn't really speak much during job interviews. And this is very disturbing because job interview is not a physical exam. Okay, don't think you go in there, you're like, oh, okay, look at me. I have hands, I have arms, I have legs. Okay, so hire me. No. Job interviews, people need you to say what you're passionate about, what can you do, what your experiences are. And so you do have to be very active talking, and then make sure you practice, make sure you get feedbacks. Those are very important. And because I've seen faculty candidates who did earlier interviews and failed miserably, and toward the end of the job season, and they became so fluent in their presentation, in their Q&A skills. And so practice does make a difference. There's jobs, there's careers. Career is more long-term, where that you continue building your success. For academic positions is a career. Industry position, you also have a career, even though sometimes you move to a different company, but then you work in the same field. And your past experiences will be rewarded in terms of your new positions, the level, the ranking, the salary, and so on. And so keep that in mind. Many of us will have a career. And so then career require long-term planning. And I didn't realize this until Mary, my former department staff, said, you have a career. And so I really thank her for pointing this out. Career require a little bit of planning. And one of the biggest things that you do have to decide, turns out, is time management. Time, everyone gets 24 hours a day. How you allocate that time is really your decision, and that decision makes a huge difference. And I encourage you to listen to Professor Randy Pausch, the late Professor Randy Pausch, the lecture on time management. He passed away relatively quickly after the diagnosis of her terminal cancer. I think it's a pancreas cancer. And I was, at that time, I was, I think I just gave birth to my daughter, and begin my career, about to begin my academic career, and I really benefit. And of course that it took me a long time to figure out how to practice the time management strategy. And so I want to tell you now so that you can start processing this. In a quick mentioning, and in his talk, he also talked a little bit about the email processing. The email is, like, I feel like handling email is just such a time sink. And it's a trap. It's a trap because you feel like you're productive, and because you're replying all kinds of emails, and you are sending out a whole bunch of emails. But it's very important that this is not just your career. And so and long ago, I read an article. People said that you have 4 Ds, sometimes 3 Ds, but then do it, delete it. Though sometimes it's easy to tell, and you want to minimize the defer. Defer is where you have to revisit and then decide, because that will require additional time. And so if you can just decide right away after you see this message, then it's a linear time algorithm, right? If you have to come back and then revisit, hopefully not too many of them, and then decide. But a lot of times that some emails you don't want to react. You want to wait a little bit, especially important ones. So that's for emails. But in general, time management, how to manage your time. Email handling is just one example. But in general, Professor Pausch put together this table, and this is based on a book written by Stephen Covey. And the Stephen Covey drew from many successful people, celebrities. So due soon, not due soon, important, not important. And we have 4 cells. Okay, 1 means very important. We have to do it, the most important thing. And this 4 means you do it the latest, the ordering. Okay, when you have time, you get up in the morning, you're like, okay, I have a whole bunch of things I need to do. Everyone would agree they would do the important thing that's due soon. And the tricky part is for the other 2 cells, which one is first? Turns out that the important thing not to do soon is something that you really have to do much more than the not important thing that is gonna be due soon. Okay, but a lot of times that people say, oh, I have this due soon. I know it's not important, but let me get right to it because it's due soon. It says right here. So that may not be a good strategy in the long term. Okay. And so let's just process this table a little bit more. What does this mean? If it's due soon, if you don't do it, what's gonna happen, right? So you can delegate it. You can do it quickly, do it last minute, or you can delete it if it's if you didn't make any promise. You can decline it. You say, oh, I'm sorry, I changed my mind. My schedule cannot allow it. I don't have availability, things change. And so there are ways for you to resolve this. But then it's very important that I realize a lot of things that other people ask me to do, they give me a deadline. So on the things that it's probably very important to them. Not that important to me. Some of the activities not that important to me, and I have a whole bunch of those kind of activities that has a deadline. If I keep chasing those deadlines, then my time will be completely consumed. And so it's very important to notice that having a deadline doesn't necessarily mean it's important to you. I'm sure it's important to some people. And then, you certainly want to be, if you are in doing this long enough, you can quickly assess whether or not you have the bandwidth to do it. And so you don't have to procrastinate. You can just tell them, I'm sorry, I cannot do it. I cannot take this goals, this task. And so you have to assign it to someone else. And so that you facilitate other people's work, you enable other people to do their work, and you can recommend, you say, I recommend so and so. And so, but then it's come down, and if you look at the table, the tool, right, what is important? It sounds like, the table has this assumption that what is important, but do you really know? Or if you don't know, then how do you know? Right? So that is really the key question. If you look at time management or whatever, it's really what is important to you. Importance is hard to define. Hard to define, and it keeps changing. But then in terms of a career, right? your health is very important. It's always a goal, regardless of how old you are, how young you are, it's always a goal. But your career, the goal is keep changing. Sometimes it's graduation, sometimes it's publishing paper, sometimes it's achieve certain status, research status, right? Giving keynote speech, making industry impact, deployment. So you have to really think at your stage what's important to you. And a lot of time that thinking ahead would help. Don't think, tomorrow, next month, think 2-3 years ahead. Play the long game. The long game, play the long game so that you looking back, you turn around and see, okay, working backward, if I want to achieve this in 5 years, then I do have to achieve this in 2 years and achieve this in 1 year, and then do this. And that's what would allow you prioritize. And okay, I do have to beef up my papers. I do have to do more United talks. I do have to work with the industry folks. If you want to open companies, you have to do market research. And so really depends on your goals. And it's dynamic prioritization, it's dynamic queue, okay? Sometimes it's important 5 years ago, may not be important anymore. Work-life balance, if you're just by yourself, you don't have family, you don't have kids obligations, then it's easier to you don't need to worry about getting kids from daycare, right? So then you can focus more on other things. I find it usually very frustrating. My most frustrating moment is where I have to balance work with life, like family duties and work duties. And if I just can focus on one thing, that'll be a lot easier. But then that's life, right? So you have to prioritize, because you don't want your kids to get injured. You don't want the kids to get lost if you don't pick them up at school, right? They start wandering around. So you do have to be there, and that's gonna be your top priority, right? So but it's okay, once your kids is reasonably secured physically, then you can work. So things will change. It's just a dynamic prioritization. Decision making really define one's career. I think is really not staying up late. It's definitely not staying up late. I would say staying up late does nothing to you. Not to your body, not good to your body. And I mean, how many hours can you work, right? So you don't really need to stay up late. Switching jobs, whether or not to switch jobs, I changed my major from chemistry to computer science. Really love that decision, and I did it about 20 years ago. And at that time there was no AI, and the cybersecurity was just sort of, people start to realize, oh, cybersecurity is the thing. At that time I was doing some commercialization tech transfer presentations with my advisor. People are still asking, why do you need to do authentication on the web? And they sort of like didn't really understand the importance of web security. Now everything is so different. So make sure that you make the career decisions carefully, and it ties back into your long-term goal, right? Time management ties to your long-term goal, your decisions, long-term goal. So you really need to have some sort of long-term goal. Are you going to do what kind of jobs you're envisioning? And of course, you adjust, so you can pivot, you go from industry to academia, vice versa. And so you absolutely can change it, but then you do need to assess the situation. A lot of young people, I think when I was young, I had the same problem that I was envisioning the world being the Stone Age before I was born. And then once the civilization began, starting from the year I was born. But then the world is keep evolving. The world was never a Stone Age. People, many things happened before that. And then many things happen after all the time, constantly. And chief information security officer, that position was non-existent 20 years ago. And if you look at AI ethics, is pretty new topic, right? And like even I would say 6 years ago wasn't a thing. And so accept that. Be curious, accept that, knowing that you will probably adjust your career path at some point in your life. And so be ready for that. It's completely fine. And so embrace new opportunities, be curious, have the sense of curiosity, and that will help you jump into new opportunities, okay? And then a lot of times I tell you, it's gonna be, you, especially when you get older, you don't want to take new risks. You don't want to change because you're already pretty good. You're in a better position. You're in a good position. Why do you want to, change? But then, yeah. It's okay if you fail. It's a private failure. It's not going to be broadcasted on CNN. So really, and then you may get to a different new opportunities. So okay to and the failures is very important. Last time we also talk about failures could be because the system is not completely fair, and then success really has, even for a fair system, there's so much randomness. Someone told me that strong paper only have half of the chance to get into a top conference because it's just a competitive process. In the there's so much randomness, so accept that. Before I end, I want to talk a little bit about just a deeper end of this career development. And I, you guys are all so passionate. I read your statements and I was truly moved. And so I do want to share this sense, a little bit of my understanding with you about really sort of the deeper meaning of life. And then the art of in the system, the art of being in the system and subvert the system. And someone summarized it. I didn't invent this. Someone summarized the legacy of the great Grace Murray Harper, who was a rear admiral in Navy, and was one of the pioneers in cybersecurity. And of course, she was the muse of the Grace Hopper celebration conference that has been running for decades. So to be in the system is where that, my interpretation of to be in the system, like what does it mean? In the system and subvert the system. What does it mean, right? Be optimistic. And so this is a young politician. He said in his speech that don't allow frustration to mutate into cynicism. Of course, he was young, and when you get older, you really have to guard yourself not to be too cynical. And you want to be work with people, stay in the system, get onto career tracks and so on. But Grace Hopper is forever remembered as a person with attitude. A person who point out things that were not perfect, and then is just a very brave in terms of going against the mainstream, the trend. And then she, among many things, invented the Flowmatic. This is the first programming language to use English-like commands, and then she later said that she wanted more user-friendly languages, so that not just academics, not just tech-savvy people, they can engage in computing. And that vision obviously has long-lasting impact in our profession. And so and then that's it's subvert the system in the sense that you recognize the system is not perfect all the time. It's actually far from it. That you have to be able to say that, wait a minute, I want to do things that are different. And I know that it would benefit more people. And so so that's really what I want to say, and I think, you know, a lot of the advice may not be immediately relevant to you at your current stage, but hopefully, you know, keep thinking about this, and what's important to you, how you manage your time. I had a student who said that she was looking for a job, and she said that, oh, I was so busy. It's so many things, and considering, you know, grad school has activities like international culture celebration, and then, you know, I have dissertation, and so I told her that stop going to the international center if you're on job market and finishing your dissertation, like that is a lower priority for you. So I actually drew the time management table for her. Interestingly, that question was asked during her interview, and so she drew that table. So yeah, you know, I think because I had imposter syndrome for many years, I couldn't say no to people. If they asked me to do something, I would do it regardless of importance, and that really didn't help. And caused me a lot of stress, lack of focus, and just, you know, you just end up burned out so much so that you wanted to quit. And so if you're able to control your time, saying no, saying, you know, this has to wait, that give you a lot of empowerment. You empower yourself. You're like, I can control my time. I can decide what to do, what not to do. I once had a student who said that, no, I don't want to get a good grades because my parents said that they don't want me to be a poster child. And this goes back to be in the system aspect. If you can get good grades, if you can turn in your homework on time, please do. There's no point deliberately ignoring your homework in order to subvert the system. Okay, if you subvert system by sabotaging, like self-sabotaging, then you will not be in the system. You know, like your GPA will be really low, and then it's gonna be devastating when you know, can hurt your graduation, hurt your job perspective. So you do have to be reasonable, you know, when to decide when to be in the system, when to support. Okay, and you know, don't take it very far. You know, you have to be rational in all these decisions. Okay, I think, you know, and we'll keep this discussion offline, and I hope we have a Slack channel. I'm recording this. Today is November 9th, and so but I was told that we're gonna have a Slack channel, so let's keep our conversation going. All right, thank you so much.